Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Talk With Kiet podcast, where we connect people, ideas, and capital to help make a difference in the world. Today, I'm so lucky to have Anne-Marie Lerch on with me. Anne-Marie is the founder and managing partner of High Tech Hui.
I took
Anne-Marie and I would talk about her extensive career and entrepreneur journey, as well as the power of manifestation. Anne-Marie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kit. Thank you so much for having me.
And I must have botched the naming of your company, so I'll let you correct it for me.
Yes, I have a managed services company in Hawaii called High Tech Hui, and we also have a cybersecurity company called CyberUptive.
Awesome. So we usually start with origin story, and I love when you and I are catching up about your origin story and how you got started in your career. You were originally Canadian, right? So how did you go from Canada to the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a crazy story. So I've been in tech. So my background is computer science. I went to university in Canada. I went to University of Waterloo, and my family actually, I have a big tech family, and my parents have always been big on computers. So we always had a computer in our house, like back in 1983, 84, right? And my parents have always known that technology was future. So they kind of really pushed me to get a computer science degree. I wanted to get a business degree. Like my passion was about business. I knew from high school that I was reading business books, and I just thought it would be really cool to have my own business one day, because I was surrounded with friends whose parents all own their own business. So that's kind of like what inspired me in high school to think, oh, one day I would love to have my own business. And so, but though my family was saying, well, technology is the future, you really should get into technology because you're always going to have a job. And so I compromised and I got a double major. And so I have a mathematics degree, though I have two majors in computer science and business. And so after university, I got into consulting, and I thought that was really cool because I got to experience different jobs where we would have different clients, right? And I'd fly around the US and I'd go to different clients and work on different tech projects. So I thought that was really, really cool. I got to do different things within tech. I was a developer, got to code, then I got to do some testing, a little bit of project management. And there was a time in my life when I was in my early 20s where I was working, but I was not, I was a little bit miserable in my life. But I was in this job and I had this dream about a module in a software program, right? So I was testing this software program, and I had this dream about these bugs in this module in this software where I haven't even seen the code yet. And I was a tester at the time. And so the next day I woke up and I found those bugs that were in the dream. And again, I've never seen the code prior. And sure enough, I found these bugs there. And I thought, okay, wait a second. This is kind of weird, right? Like how did I know that? I know I'm not going crazy. So what's about this? Like, what is this, right? What is this? And so that kind of opened the doors for me to study these different things of manifestation, subconscious mind, intuition. And I just started opening myself up to different classes and personal development. And it was in that time where I took a personal development class where they taught me that you can create your life just by thinking it. Basically, like your thoughts are things, and you can create whatever it is that you want in your life. Because at the time, in my early 20s, I thought life was happening to me. Like, poor me, oh, this happened. Oh, like this is just how life is. Everything sucks, and life was just happening to me. And then after I did the seminar, I realized, wait a second, I can be the cause of my life, and I can create what I want in my life, and I can be the author of my life. So I started thinking, okay, what is it that I want, right? And at the time, I was knee deep in school bills. So I was struggling financially. I was struggling in my relationships. Had a horrible love life, and that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to go for my dreams. And so being in, software development, being in tech, my dream was, hey, why don't I move to the States and work for Microsoft, right? So my brother was working for Microsoft at the time. And so I thought, okay, if this concept of I can create my life, if this is really true, then I'm going to create a job at Microsoft and I'm going to make X amount of dollars, right? And I wrote this in my journal. And so I put myself out there, I put my resume in, I was flown to Seattle, I was flown to Microsoft, and I had this like 2-day interview. And then when I flew back home to Canada, I got a rejection letter. They were like, nope, like you aren't a good fit. And I was devastated. I was like, okay, this doesn't work. Like I thought, you think about it and then you create it and you can get whatever you want. And I was devastated. And I remember there was a moment in me that I was just remembering some of the teachings. And it was the teaching of like faith, right? It's like, if you want it, you don't give up and you just go for it. If you want to create it, you just have faith that it's going to happen no matter what, and you go for it. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I literally decided that I was going to move to Seattle no matter what. I packed up my little car with whatever can fit in my car. And I drove across the country. Like I was from Toronto. I drove from Toronto to Seattle, Washington. And for people that know me now, they know I don't even like to drive. So I don't know how I had the courage to drive like 3 days, across the country to Seattle. And what happened was a day or two before I arrived in Seattle, I got this email from what do you call it? One of those companies that place you, like a recruiting company where there was like a contract position at Microsoft. And I had an interview, the day after I got to Seattle. So I accepted this interview. I did the interview. I got the contract position. And it wasn't quite for, the amount of money that I wrote down in my journal, but I took it anyways. And I was excited to be there as a contractor. And a couple months later after that, I guess I did a really good job and they offered me a full-time position. And the offer they gave me was like the exact amount that I wrote down in my journal.
That's amazing.
Right. And so that was the first thing that happened, that I realized that it's like, you can create whatever it is that you want. Right. Yeah. And so that's how I moved from Toronto to the States. And I started my career in the States in tech. Right. So that I worked at Microsoft. And then after that, the next thing I was trying to manifest was love. I was, in my 20s, living in a state where don't know anybody. A lot of people around me were married. I was single. I was lonely. And I thought, okay, I want to create love in my life. And as I mentioned before, leaving Canada, my love life was a complete disaster. Yeah. And so that was the next thing that I was focusing on. I was focusing on love. And believe it or not, the first year I was in the States, I went to Vegas for Thanksgiving, because American Thanksgiving is different than Canadian Thanksgiving. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll go to Vegas. I'm not celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm going to go to Vegas and meet my brother in Vegas. And when I went to Vegas, my brother knew somebody that lived in Vegas, and they introduced us, and that's how I met my husband. So my husband, his name's Chuck. So he was living in Vegas, and he also was in tech. He was in IT. And long story short, we ended up, getting married. I moved to Vegas. And when I was in Vegas, we dabbled in business. We had a bunch of different startups and stuff that didn't really get off the ground. We had like a small tech business. It was like a little side thing, but we struggled a lot in business. I mean, I even sold like oils and vinegars in Vegas. We tried so many,
hustling.
Yeah, we tried so many different things, and it didn't stick. And then I ended up reading a book called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. And I read this book and I was so inspired that I thought, I want to work for this company. So I ended up putting in my resume, and I got it. I was so excited. I got a job offer again. I wrote down the amount of money I wanted to make, and I manifested like what I wanted to do. And sure enough, I got an offer for exactly what I wrote down, and I joined Zappos. And for those of you that don't know Zappos, it's known for like their amazing culture, great place to work. It did get bought out by Amazon. And when I was working at Zappos, I have to say that everything that you've read or heard about Zappos is completely true. I mean, I loved going to work at Zappos. I woke up, I loved where I worked. I loved pretty much who I worked with. It was like going to work with your friends. And I worked with such brilliant and smart people that I loved everything about it. And at the time, though, this was like, in the 2007, 2012-ish time, where in Vegas, the market was crashing.
Yeah.
So my husband being in tech as well, is the market was crashing. He has some of his own crazy stories, and some of the companies that he worked for went bankrupt. And I mean, that was a little bit of a mess. And he used to live in Hawaii, and he used to consult for the DoD in Hawaii. And so at that point, he said, I've always wanted to raise my kids in Hawaii. I want to go back to Hawaii and maybe start something there. And I said, no, I'm not moving to Hawaii. I have my dream job. I love it here. Why don't you go first and maybe travel back and forth? And that's pretty much what he did. So he went to Hawaii. He was traveling back and forth. And can you believe, like, I said no to paradise because I loved my job that much. I know some people would think I'm crazy, but I mean, that's really how I felt. And then at that point, I ended up getting pregnant with my second child. And then I thought, I already had one, and so my second was on the way. And I thought my husband traveling back and forth wasn't a good thing for our family. And it's at that point that I decided that I was going to move to Hawaii, and that I was going to raise my family in Hawaii.
Now, before we go into your Hawaii experience, tell us a bit about how you manifest to shadowing Tony Hsieh for 2-3 days.
Oh, yes.
What's been that experience? Because that I'm sure everyone, because he's a very interesting person, right?
Yes. Okay. So while I was working at Zappos, they have this program called the Wish Program, and any employee can put any wish that they want, and they can have like angels that can see these wishes and grant them the wishes. It could be like, oh, I need a new chair in my apartment, or I want tickets to this event, or I need a babysitter for my dog. It could be any kind of wish. And me loving everything about business, right? I had my entrepreneur hat on, and I thought, oh my goodness, I would love to shadow Tony Hsieh for a couple of days, right? So I just kind of put that wish out there thinking, this is never going to happen. I mean, I'm going to manifest it, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. And sure enough, I think it was his admin that saw that wish, and I got granted the wish to follow him around. And I remember the first time I met him one-on-one, we went out for drinks, and the first thing he said was, okay, you got to do this shot with me. And it was the most disgusting shot.
Yeah.
It was the most disgusting shot. But he was the most down-to-earth business owner, entrepreneur, I think, that I've ever met. And he just really cared. And I loved his philosophy it was just about the mission, and it was about creating the best customer experience. And I feel like I really learned that from my time at Zappos, and from learning from just even my one-on-ones with Tony Hsieh.
That's amazing. Okay, so back to Hawaii. So now you have 2 kids.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm pregnant. So I'm pregnant with my second kid. I decided to move to Hawaii, and I'm thinking, okay, look, what am I going to do? Right. So I've worked for like big 5 consulting companies like Accenture, Microsoft, Zappos, Amazon. I moved to Hawaii. There's no Google, there's no Facebook. Like, those are where my friends are working. Like, what am I going to do? And at the same time, I'm pregnant with my second kid, and my whole thing is family is really important to me, right? I never want to miss like their first step, their first word. I want to be there for it. And so I wanted to create something for myself where I could make money, pay my bills. Hawaii is very, very expensive, but never miss a beat with my kids. And so that's when I thought, okay, now's the time. I'm ready after my experience at Zappos and my experience with all the other failures with the businesses that we had. Now's my time to create this business. And it's funny, I said to my husband, I said, okay, I'm going to create an IT tech business in Hawaii. And the first thing he said was, no, don't do it. He said, don't do it. And the reason why he said that was because he didn't have the time to help, right? It wasn't about me not succeeding. It's just he didn't have the time to help, and he knew, what that would take. And I said, no, I know how to do it this time. I got it. And so that's kind of how I started our managed services business. So, I mean, I meant for it to just be like a small thing that I could do and work from home. And it just grew. So during, I'd say right before the pandemic, what happened was my husband came and joined us. So his background is in IT and cybersecurity. So he used to consult for the DoD, and he was doing cybersecurity before the word cybersecurity was even a thing. And so he came and joined us and took us to a whole different direction. And that's how we started Cyberuptive, which we have like a 24/7 security operations center. So it's like we've got employees across the country just monitoring different organization systems to make sure that they're not breached, that they're not hacked. And he was key in bringing that to our company.
Now, so you made the Inc. 5000 list recently, right? But unlike other people that made that list, who's raised funding from outside money, you built all this from the ground up with no outside money.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. So when I was starting the company, I call it straddling. So I built it from scratch with no investors, just with our own money, little by little, person by person, client by client. And the first couple of years, though, I have to say, I did take a part-time job. So my background is in business intelligence, data science. And so I took a part-time job where I worked 30 hours a week, and then I spent the other 30 hours a week building the business. And I did that for a couple of years.
So how is it, experience like working with your husband, like being the family business? Because people say, don't go to business with your family, right? And now you have like a family business. Like what's the experience versus what people say out there?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that I'm fortunate because my husband and I have such complementing skills that I'm one of the odd couples that work really well with my husband, right? So the skills that he has, I don't have. The skills I have, he doesn't have. So we barely overlap. And people joke that they think like we see each other all the time, but I would say that that's far from the truth. I mean, I work from home a lot. He goes into the office. He's in meetings all day. I'm in meetings all day. And we are rarely in meetings together. It does happen, though it's rare. And it works for us because I think that together with the same mindset, right? So my husband also does the same personal development seminars that I do, and we have the same mindset. And so I think that the two of us and the focus of building something great together has been a blessing. I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah. So who takes care of the kid when you're both working?
It's a juggling act. So it depends on the day. And we just have to juggle, every day by day, who's got the kids, who's taking them to school, who's picking them up. When one's sick, who's taking care of them right now, right after this podcast, I'm taking one of my kids to the doctors. He's taking care of another sick kid at home. And then I'm going to go home and he's going to go to a conference all day. And so it's just a juggling act.
Yeah. And there's a lot of teamwork. People say, it's important to find the right life partner.
Yes.
Right? It makes a huge difference in whatever you do. And it sounds like you guys have figured that out pretty well.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that we have. And I have to say that we do get a lot of help, right? So I also have my mother who lives with me. And I don't think I could have done it without her being in my home to help me when I need extra set of hands. So I think that it like what they say is it takes a village. I really believe that because it's not just me and my husband. It's everybody around us that's helping us for this mission.
Yeah. And so, you're a great example of women in tech, women entrepreneur. like, do you see enough, like, has that changed over recent years? Like, you see more and more women in the space, or there's still room to improve?
I think there's tons of room to improve. I mean, I thought that it was moving a little bit where I started seeing more women in tech, though I was just at a career fair recently and I was surprised that I had probably one woman come to my booth to inquire about tech. So I feel like there's a ton more opportunity for women to get, there's a ton more opportunity for people in general to get in tech.
Yeah,
Though
yeah.
definitely I still feel that women are a minority and I don't know why. Definitely still seeing more women in tech, but I would love to see more because I'm still in rooms where I'm one of 2 or 3 women in that meeting.
Yeah, you have a lot on your shoulder. You're representing, right?
Yeah. But
So
I
I
just
mean,
why. I mean, I think the only reason why I'm in tech was because I had older brothers that were in tech and I had parents that saw the future of tech that just kept on pushing me. I mean, because truthfully, when I was in this career fair, you saw different career paths, right?
yeah.
And tech doesn't necessarily seem so sexy. Like if you don't know much about it, right? But there's so many different opportunities in tech. I still believe, when my mother was telling me this, what, 30 years ago, that technology is the future, I still think even more so. Technology is even more the future.
No, 1,000%. Though, what is your take with the likes of like a Chat GPT and this AI stuff that everyone's scared about?
Okay, so well, it depends. That's a loaded question because I do like the uses of ChatGPT, but recently, what I'm learning in terms of especially the cyber space,
Yeah,
it's only now that I think I'm starting to be fearful, only because, and I don't know if you've heard, but with ChatGPT and with AI, they can basically, it's like artificial intelligence for your voice, right? So they can replicate your voice and they can call people to say, your employees to say, oh, can you wire this amount of money to this bank? Or they can call your children and give your children instructions and it sounds exactly like you. So some of the stuff that I'm hearing lately about it, AI is it's just the beginning. And so I definitely see the benefits and the importance of why we have it, but I also see how it could be used for the bad, right? So
yeah.
we're just in the beginning. So who knows what's going to happen 2, 3, 4 years from now and how it's going to be used. But in terms of like our business, we have to anticipate what can be done, how can it be used, what do we need to put into place and measures in place to make sure that companies aren't vulnerable to the use of AI, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, from a cybersecurity perspective, it makes things a lot worse, right? Companies need to be mindful of,
Exactly.
yeah, the
Right.
danger on it.
Like for instance, for MFA, right, multi-factor authentication, when you get a code, somebody can call my husband, right? It sounds like me and say, hey, I need that MFA code that was just sent to you. And he's thinking it's me,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's kind of scary stuff.
that is pretty freaky. Okay, so back to the core of
Mhm.
the topic of this talk, which is the power of manifestation. And then you and I met at a Tony Robbins event, right? Not a lot of people in the network know I'm a fully certified Tony Robbins person, just like you are.
Yeah.
And before we go into manifestation, like, what is your philosophy around learning and to continue education? Because you're very successful, you know a lot, but why you continue to like invest in learning? I'm just amazed that like you love to learn.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's one of our core values. So it's a core value in our company, and it was a core value at Zappos as well. And I just feel that the more I learn, the happier I am, the more success that I create. And success it's not just about money. Success is about happiness. It's about experience. It's about living the life of your dreams. And I feel that the more that I learn, the more that I create and achieve that, if that makes sense. Like it's really about living my best life. And I think back to that time when I was, in my 20s, when I first started doing those seminars. I think about who I was then, and who I was then was I wasn't happy. I could say that I was depressed. I was struggling financially. I did not have the life that I want. And I feel that the more I learn, the more that I learn the tools to create and attract to me everything that I want in my life. And it's like, for me, it's about living a very fulfilled life in a way where I get the lesson fast, I have shortcuts, and there's less pain. So maybe maybe it's a selfish thing because I like the shortcuts. I mean, if I could learn from somebody else's mistake, or if I can have a shortcut and get there faster, why wouldn't I? Right? So that's my philosophy of learning. It's just because I just want a great life and I want to do it fast, because we're only on this earth for so long that I'd rather learn from other people's experiences.
No, that's right. And one of the things Tony Robbins teaches a lot of is the power of proximity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning and mirroring from people that's been there, done that.
Exactly.
So how would someone start? Like, someone want to manifest something in their life and they want to, like, how would they start?
Okay, so that's a great question. A lot of people are asking me this. So the first thing is, I would recommend different personal development seminars, and I don't know if I should mention them here, or if I should, put them in a chat.
Up to you. It's up to you.
So I pretty much have done it all. So I've done landmark education. I've done size seminars, Tony Robbins, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I would start at, doing a seminar, but even before that, pick up a book. My favorite book is Think and Grow Rich. Love that book. I've read that so many times. That was written in like the early 1900s. I think that was probably one of the first books on manifestation. So I would start there, just reading different books. The Power of the Subconscious Mind, that's another great book. But start learning about how powerful your mind is and how your mind can create whatever it is that you want. I always say that we're like magnets, right? So your emotions, how you feel, attract what it is that you want. So you have to start learning how to do that. And then you also have to get clear on what it is that you do want. So I'm surprised that, if you're asked somebody, what do you want? Some people haven't really taken the time to really write out their dreams or write out their life of what it is that they want to create. Like, they kind of have an idea, or they play small because they don't believe, or they don't think that the life of their dreams is achievable, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. And then how important is gratitude in this equation?
Oh my goodness. Let me just tell you a little story. So when that's one thing where I have to say that when I was in my 20s, I think I just lacked gratitude. Like I was miserable, and I just thought, woe is me, and everything happened to me, and I was just a completely different person. And then when I started reading about the power of gratitude and really being grateful for every little thing, it changed my life. I mean, I remember the drive from Seattle to Washington. At this time is when I started learning and practicing some of these techniques. And that whole journey was, that was a journey in itself, right? And when I was traveling, I remember I was going through these mountains, and I was just saying, thank you. Like, thank you for this experience. It was snowing, and it was on the West Coast, and I was not used to driving in mountains in snow, because Toronto was really flat. And I remember just being thankful, even though I was scared, just being thankful for the journey, thankful for this experience, thankful that, I almost made it to my journey. I was only a couple hours away. And if I could just get through this blizzard in this storm, that I would be so grateful. And I got to my destination. But I remember, that was just a turning point for me, where I started being grateful for not just the great things, but even the hard things. So even like I looked back and, I was in different relationships and different situations where, like, it was really painful. And I started coming from a place of thank you for that experience. Like, even though that was awful, and even though that hurt, thank you for that experience. And just by being grateful for that, I felt so much lighter, and everything just started to fall into place, right? So like right after doing that, it's like, that's when I got the email about that job offer. I also remember getting like my first place in Washington, and I was overlooking the lake. And I remember every day I would look over the lake and just be like, thank you. This is so beautiful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for like allowing me to universe for allowing me to be here. Thank you for this home. Thank you for this job. Thank you for everything. And once I started coming from a place of gratitude, it was like almost impossible to be sad and depressed, because you start opening your eyes to all the little beautiful things in life. And I just felt like my world opened up. And that's when I felt that things just started landing in my lap. And so when I started reading about gratitude, gratitude is like a higher vibration, right? So like when you think about anger and sadness and depression, it's like a lower vibration. But when I started going into gratitude, it's like a higher vibration. And that's when I started to be able to attract more great things in my life, because I was vibrating from a higher level, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And before we touch on vibration, there's a quote that we talked about, right? Is, in your darkest times, sometimes you think you're buried, but in reality, you've been planted.
I love that.
Right.
I love that.
And it's that mentality, I think, that drives the difference, right? Because same thing can happen in two people, but it's how you take it, right?
Exactly. And I think Tony Robbins says, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And so whenever I have like my hardest times, I just think, this is a gift. This is a gift. I may not know it yet, but I'm grateful for this moment. Even though it sucks and it's painful, I'm grateful for this moment. And it just kind of shifts everything. Because the reality is, if I didn't have that struggle in Toronto, if I didn't have that struggle with the relationships or in my life, I wouldn't have wanted change. I wouldn't have packed my car and I wouldn't have driven to Seattle without that pain, So in that pain, I've got so much gratitude for that pain, because it caused a ripple effect of all these different great things in my life, which then caused me to be here in Hawaii living my dream life, if that makes sense.
No, it does. So let's touch on energy and vibration, like how that interrelate with the whole manifestation.
Okay, so that's a great question. So my philosophy is I try to keep my energy as clean and in the highest vibration as possible, because I know that I feel that I'm like a magnet, right? My energy, my emotions is what's going to magnetize and attract what it is that I'm trying to create. So if I'm angry, if I'm upset, and just think about it, right? Like, let's say you walk in a room and somebody's like angry or pissed off, or they don't need to say anything. You can kind of feel the energy. You kind of have like a repelling, like, I'm going to stay away from that, right? They're probably going through something. I'm going to stay away from that. But when I shift my energy and I work on like myself, I feel that it's just, I'm a magnet. So it's my emotions that attract what it is that I want to create. So one of the things that I do even before I manifest it, right? So like, let's say I'm trying to manifest it. Instead of saying like, I want that, I say, thank you. Like I say, thank you as if I already have it, because thanking as if it's already in the present is what's going to attract it to me faster, if that makes sense. So I try to keep my energy super clean with emotions that are going to attract what I want. And so when I say lower energies like anger, frustration, resentment, those are lower energies that make it difficult to attract. Gratitude, faith, gratitude, faith, and just like that knowing that you're going to create that's what's going to get you what you want.
Yeah. And so how do you apply that to your hiring, like, and the employees that you build for your business? Do you integrate a lot of that into it?
That's a great question. So do I integrate manifestation?
Or just like the vibe that people bring? Like, do you try to like test for like people that have constant like negative viewpoints or?
Oh, 100%, definitely. So we go through a process, an HR process, where we ask specific questions, where we try to bring out, what kind of mindset. So it's about the mindset, right? What kind of mindset does this person have? Because if somebody has a mindset of, oh, this sucks or that sucks, or this isn't going to work, it's going to be
against me for some reason, right?
Yes, exactly. It's going to be hard to work with them and for them to join our team, which isn't like that, right? Like, we believe in possibility. So we definitely try to ask questions to see if that individual is going to be a right fit. But 100%. Like we do ask questions to see if they have the right mindset. And I have to say, you know, we've made mistakes. We've definitely made mistakes in the hiring process. Though the team that we have right now, I'd say, I mean, they're family, right? And the way they think is just so aligned. And we also put our team in different personal development. So we just had a Tony Robbins trainer this week come in to talk to my team. So we also, you know, we believe in pursue growth and learning, and that goes across all our teams. So we encourage our team to also pursue growth and learning. And so what we do is we also put them in a personal development seminar so that for those that aren't, you know, don't really understand this whole thing about thoughts or things or energy, we put them in seminars so that they can understand and how to apply it on their day-to-day. So if I can add one more. So we do techniques as a team, right? It's like we're trying to manifest, you know, like let's say a new client or a new opportunity. We as a team say, okay, this is our target. And then we have different techniques that we say, okay, let's visualize this and let's manifest this. So we manifest it together as a team.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what's your experience in, you know, team dynamics as you grow and have more and more people within the business?
What do you mean by team dynamics? Like,
you know, like you can go from, you know, a 5-person team to 50, you know, as you grow, and there's, you know, there's more people, more headaches, like people say more money, more problem, more people, more problem. Like how does that experience working out for you?
well, I think you hit it on the nail when you said it's the hiring process, because I think hiring the right people is key. And like I said, we made mistakes, and that's how we know that a wrong person can really shift the energy of a team. And I have to say that during COVID, so it was in 2020, I think it was 2020. Yeah. We went from like 5 employees to 30 in 2 or 3 years. So when you say dynamics, I'd say that the hiring is the most important thing, and then making sure that we hire for culture. So that's one thing that I learned at Zappos is like skills and stuff you can train, but you cannot train a person's values and culture. It's in them. And so we try to find the people that match our culture. Everything else can be trained. And from growing, right? Once we got the right people based on our culture, I think it was just a matter of making sure that you had the right processes in place in order to grow and expand. And that's been the hardest. It's just, you know, like the fast growth, getting the processes in place, cleaning things up. That's been our challenge.
Yeah. But it's interesting because, you know, the DNA is having that learner mindset, right? And so having people with a growth mindset, as you evolve, as you shift, right, you don't need to worry because you have the right people with the right mindset in place. They'll get you to the right place.
Exactly. And I do want to add, like when it comes to growth, right, it's growth in multiple ways. Growth as in personal development, because I believe that happy employees are going to provide the greatest experience. If an employee is not happy with themselves in their life, how are they going to serve one of our clients, right? So they have to be happy within themselves. And then also growth in what they do. Tech is moving so fast, right? In cybersecurity, with AI, with the new AI threats and everything like that, you have to be on top of your game. You have to be learning. You have to know what's going on there to be at the top of your game. So we have to hire people that they understand that change is necessary. Change is happening, and we have to be ahead of the curve.
No, exactly. And so had you never worked for Zappos, and this may be a loaded question, like would you have built the business you built?
That's a good question. Probably not, because I never had that experience of like just the culture of just loving work that much. You know, I mean, I have worked for teams that I loved working for, but not at that level. I mean, that was a whole nother level of fun and productivity that I've never experienced before. And so I really think that I brought that, like what I learned, I brought to the company because I knew for my own sanity that I needed to love what I was doing every day. And if I didn't, I couldn't deal personally, right?
Yeah.
Personally. So it was kind of self-serving, where I needed for my own sanity to create an environment that I loved to be at, with people I loved to work with, and provide great customer experience, and that everybody was on the same page. Like, I needed that for my sanity. And
Yeah.
I think other people also, like when you talk to other people, they want to work in an environment where they love, right? Like, you're spending most of your time, most of your life, your most of your day at work, right? So you got to love it. Otherwise it's going to be hard to like wake up in the morning.
No, exactly. So, Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being on today. That was amazing. I'm getting a lot of insightful texts from people. I don't know how I can't get my stuff not to bing, but people hearing like these text messages coming through. So thank you so much. Extremely insightful. Usually where we end the podcast is really around asking you, the entrepreneur, how can we help you as a network? What are the types of people you can connect with? And, what are some of the things that we can help you with?
Oh, that's so awesome. Okay. And thank you for having me. So I would say the people that I would want to meet is corporations that need security, that have, a compliance. We work with healthcare companies, financial institutions, insurance companies, companies where they do not want to get hacked because it would be detrimental for their business. So those are the type of companies that we work with. But for me, I love talking about manifesting. I love talking about living your dreams and really helping people to just go for what they want in life. So if anybody, I'm open to doing more podcasts. I'm open to talking about it because I really just want to pay it forward. I feel like I'm just so blessed. I live in paradise. I have 3 beautiful girls. I've got a growing company, and I just feel so blessed that I just want to pay it forward. So if there's any way I can help in that way, I'm happy to.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for being on today. That was brilliant. Thank you to the audience for your continued support. Till next time. Have a good day, everybody. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.